We're going to say that we sold the company for 28 million.
You have a skill and a talent that you just want to share.
I have to pay you to perform for you? Like, what?
One of these guys is going to go on to become the next Diplo.
Artists are kind of screwed. AI generators will compete with that.
There's this dark side of the music industry not a lot of people talk about.
What's good, guys? I'm Jeff Nang.
And I'm Rohan from Control of Voice.
And I'm joined here with Ilias, who is a young entrepreneur, founder of Tapped.ai, and he's our special guest for this evening. So, Ilias, please can you tell our audience what you do, where you're from?
I guess what I would say is creator, entrepreneur. As you said, I'm the founder of Tapped.ai. And then on top of that, I also started a marketing agency / media company about 8 years ago known as TCC Entertainment. And then I also created a book for creators, musicians, entrepreneurs on how to navigate like the social media landscape and build a following. Then on top of that, just kind of documenting my journey. And then also the founder of Creator Week as well, which is my version of an independent South by Southwest out here in New York City.
When did you start this whole journey of creating an entrepreneurship and building Tapped, or even before Tapped? How did it all start?
You know, it's funny because I feel like every entrepreneur has this story. They were like, when I was 4 years old, I was selling Pokemon cards for $5,000 each when I went into preschool. And then in middle school, I somehow got into meme coins before meme coins were like, they always have these crazy stories that they came on these crazy riches.
Guilty of being Pokemon cards as well.
Oh, me too. Don't get me wrong, but not for $4,000. I guess for me, as stupid as it sounds, I talked about this in another podcast with Bob Shammy. I said that for me, mine actually came from like video games, because of video games, I was building a lot of communities. I played a game called Maple Story, which is a really popular game from out in Korea. Attack a bunch of different monsters, go on a bunch of different quests, build an organization. And in that organization, sounds nerdy as hell, but there's like guilds and stuff. And so my goal was like, I want to be the #1 guild, right? And so as a young kid, I'm gaming 24/7. I'm trying to recruit all these people in different pockets of the world to just add as many people as we can to this guild. And then we became one of the top guilds on that server. I was a part of like a trick shotting clan that I started with a couple friends. And in Call of Duty, we did a lot of like Easter eggs, created like Minecraft servers, and we posted on like a YouTube channel. And then one of my friends didn't like that he was being made fun of for it. So he deleted the whole organization and it was gone off YouTube. But I think that's essentially where my knack for entrepreneurship came, not because I was selling lemonade and all these other things at school. I sucked at that stuff, to be honest with you. I really was attracted to the idea of bringing people together. And that's the idea that I like about entrepreneurship. I know a lot of people like to build things, and don't get me wrong, I love building and creating as well. But what I also love is getting people to get excited and to join a part of something that's bigger than themselves.
Where you've come from is more like a new generation of entrepreneurship. When you listen to like the Gary V's and all, they're the ones that were selling lemonade out of a stool. The young entrepreneurs are kind of like using the new technology, right?
I actually also did the whole Minecraft faction server. Like we had a cactus farm and we were like just running the town, just like making sure we were the richest people on that server. And it is there are a lot of parallels with like real life and games where it's like you're upgrading things, you're like improving your skills. And
when did like the idea for Tapped come in? And explain as well like what Tapped is to our audience, for people that don't know.
Tapped for right now is basically focusing on helping independent musicians to be able to book shows in their city, share the stage with their favorite artists when they come into town, and then also ideally to be able to create a world tour through your iPhone. Now that doesn't sound, I don't want that to sound as enticing as it does. That's the sexy answer. The boring solution is that it's obviously just a database, and AI scales through all the different venues. It takes a look at your booking history, your social media statistics. Then it finds out, an estimated amount of people that you could bring out to a show. And then it match makes you with these different venues. We want to build it to something bigger, which we haven't talked much about, which is going to allow every single venue to be able to access this piece of, I'm saying too much, Johannes is going to get mad. It's good. I'm going to just say it, this piece of hardware, and that's all I'm going to keep it as.
It's fine. We'll get Johannes on the next episode.
Yeah, get Johannes on the next episode.
No, we got the exclusive right now. We got the exclusive on what's coming for Tapped.
Right now, what Tapped is essentially is just allowing independent performers to be able to create a world tour through their iPhone.
I think one of the coolest things is like everyone who's like embracing AI with music is they're trying to figure out a way to just like automate the actual process we enjoy. Which is like, I'm fine with sitting and like generating chords and playing keyboards, but I don't want to be like looking through venues and like scheduling things. So I think it's cool that you're taking a lot of that off the artist.
Did that come from like your experience? Like, were you a musician?
So you know what's funny? I used to make music when I was in high school. I knew it was trash, and I was like, you know what? I'm still going to be involved in this entertainment industry because it's something I enjoy. And I know the money is elsewhere, right? Like behind the scenes, whether it be from directing videos, throwing events, managing people. That's kind of the lane that I went towards. And that's why I developed my media company, right? So I left music completely in the past. If I had your guys' product back then, maybe I'd be a musician now, right? Because then they could take my shitty vocals and turn it into something nice. But I built up my media company. And then this actually goes back to the video games. I turned it into like a collective. And so everybody on campus who was a model, a producer, a DJ, a musician, whatever you were, as long as you were in the entertainment industry and you were on our campus, I had you become a part of the collective. And then every single week we would throw an event, and that ended up becoming massive, right? And everybody had put our company name in their bio when they were a part of like the collective. So I literally had people meet up with me and they're like, hey, I want to become a dancer. I want to become a musician. And I said, okay, let's take it serious. Let's do some contracts. Let's figure it out. I literally had somebody sit in front of me and said, bro, I'm gonna be real with you. I just want to join the collective. That shit looks cool as fuck. Can you just let me join? And so the reason why was because we were throwing events. The events that we were throwing, we started booking a lot of big talent, right? Whenever they would come into the city, they would bring me and my media company and all the different people that were involved with it to help bring awareness to these events. I witnessed one night where we had a huge partnership. There was like $100 grand in cash. This is not my money. This is the money they were giving to the performer. I'm 19 years old at the time. I shouldn't even be throwing events. I don't even know how I got into this situation. We'll talk about that in the next podcast. But things started picking up quickly. And then, you know, our events got really popular and people wanted us to come and basically affiliate ourselves and partner and do marketing and experiential marketing, all these different things to help sell ticket sales. And so we were also utilizing our digital platform. And when we did that, I was looking at this situation where the people who are in the crowd are extremely pissed off because it's 2 a.m. and the performer has not performed yet. I'm going downstairs in the underneath of the venue. There is a backpack with all this cash for the performer that the performer is waiting to get the upfront deposit of his money on. But the owner and the promoter and the booking agent are upset because the performer didn't post 2 Instagram story posts. So he didn't deserve that upfront money yet. And it was a constant back and forth. So I pocketed that in my mind because I was like, this is something that could be in a digital escrow. There should not be handshakes. I get that a majority of the music industry, there's this dark side of the music industry not a lot of people talk about. There's a lot of money that goes undocumented. There are a lot of deals that are just done with handshakes. Then we complain, we're like, why am I getting screwed over? Well, it's because you're not educating yourself on the deals that you're getting into, which one could argue the label doesn't give the resources to educate people on these deals, of course. And they're preying on independent artists that don't know what they're doing. But you have the internet in front of you. And I think everybody should do their due diligence before they ever take a deal or any big money offers. So when I saw that and I saw the way that people were arguing, I was like, okay, the people who are in the show are upset, like in the crowd, because their performer's not on stage. The owner is upset because the people who are waiting for the performer to go on stage is upset. The owner's also upset that the performer is complaining and saying that he's about to leave. And I was like, this is a disaster. The show ended up going on anyways, and he performed for like 15 minutes. He took his money. Everybody was pissed. 2 years later, I get on a podcast, which is why I love podcasts. I meet my co-founder, Johannes, and on campus, there was 2 different sides. Like there was like the entertainment side of campus because it was a public arts school, but it had a very strong engineering program. And so all the tech kids were on this side and all the entertainment, fashion, arts kids were on the other side. And for years, I kept hearing about Johannes. He's building a music tech startup. You need to connect with him. I say this in every podcast too. I say, I didn't think he would mess with me. He would probably think I'm like a douchebag or something. And long story short, I was like, man, this guy might hate me. He's an engineer. We're not going to click. I end up starting the music industry club at VCU. And my co-founder for that was his co-founder for his music tech startup. I hop on their podcast. I do a little bit of an interview. Johannes and I get to know each other a little bit better. And after that, we speak on the phone for a couple hours. And I tell him that specific problem that I saw and a couple other problems that I knew in the music industry. And so I was thinking nothing of it. I was like, oh, this is cool. I know this like sick ass engineer. He's about to go work for Google. And they were building this music tech startup in Richmond at the time that had some buzz. Essentially what it was a TikTok for producers. So instead of having to sit there and sift through 1,000 beats in maybe like 4 or 5 days, you can now hear the best 15-second snippet and swipe through 1,000 beats in an hour. So he was building that. And I told him about all these different ideas. And a couple of weeks later, he told me, Everybody else on his team had graduated and they went to go work at Fortune 500 companies or bigger corporate jobs. And he was the only one who still wanted to pursue his startup. So then he gave me a call and he said, "Do you want to start?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, of course I want to start." And that's when we started Tapped. And for the past 2 years, we've been working on 7 different iterations of the company. But within the last year, we finally got it knocked down to live music data analytics and helping independent performers focus on the booking sliver of the music industry.
The whole headache at that show just gave me anxiety.
What's your advice to like either the venue owners or the artists to avoid that kind of like time sensitive conflict? Like, are there things they can do to prepare for that to make sure they don't get into that situation?
I would say maybe avoid cheap cuts. And I've seen it from the outside looking in. Like, I don't want to give these venue owners like too much advice and think that I'm on this high horse because they're like 10 times more successful than me, right? And but I do think that a lot of them take shortcuts. And this is what I've learned from tech, right? It's like take the most efficient route possible and the best way so you don't have to deal with headaches like long term, right? And I think with venue owners, they're willing to save $1,000 here or $2,000 here so that they don't have to pay $10,000 in taxes at the end of the year. Okay, so you're doing that, but you're dealing with all these headaches every single weekend. You could pay the taxes. You could do everything on a digital platform. You could sign contracts. And keep in mind, I'm generalizing here. This is not every single venue, but this is a majority of independent venues, and 34% of the market is independent venues. And so that's the sliver that we want to dominate and that we want to focus on. We're not really focused on the Live Nation venues, but that's a disaster within itself as well. If you do your due diligence, if you do things the right way, then it'll work out for you long term.
What's the kind of main benefits that you're trying to give to the artists that are using like Tapped.ai? Like what is it that they're going to gain from it?
The current landscape of bookings is extremely archaic and super gate kept, right? I met a lot of different musicians who only performed at places where their friends knew a promoter, but that's not how it should be. Like, I shouldn't be performing at a rock venue down the street if I make classical music, right? I believe that every independent artist has a home when it comes to performing. Let's say I'm a classical artist and I perform at a classical venue. Well, then the natural foot traffic and when people are walking by, they see that there's an actual classical artist inside there. They might go in there, pay for a ticket, and now become a fan. If I'm a rock artist and everybody who goes there every Friday night goes for classical music, I'm in there. The first thing they're doing is turning around. So one of the benefits that we have for a lot of these artists is allowing them to now have a Rolodex or like a booking agent that has access to all these venues, and then also allow them to communicate with these venues. So for example, right now we're seeing a huge uptick in AI agents. We technically had an AI agent as of last year because this was representing you and your musical career and communicating with these venues on your behalf to tell them why you would be a good fit to perform. Now, there's not really much of convincing because on the back end, we're also figuring out the numbers to see how many tickets you would sell. The other big issue is that a lot of people think that they have to perform by themselves, but the people who have used the app have found 9 to 10 other performers, then put a bill together and then went to a venue. So if I can prove that I can sell 10 tickets, but I'm going to a 200 capacity venue, why the hell would they book me? Well, if Rohan can sell 100 tickets and Jeff can now sell 100 tickets, and in totality, we're now selling 210 tickets at an estimated range, they're more likely to book us, right? Now, here's another issue. We talked about this with Chartmetric and some other companies. Well, how can you verify that you're going to bring in that much people? Well, the equation that goes in on the back end, there's a little bit of a buffer too. So if you're likely to bring like 200 people, then we'll suppress it a little bit and say 100. So the expectations are always being met, if that makes sense.
You're always trying to oversell or like build demand more.
Undersell, over deliver. Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. I like how you like kind of bring them together to fill in that void. Cause like, I remember one time, this was when I was like just releasing a mixtape in college. Yeah. There was like a venue in Detroit that reached out and they were like, "Oh, like we think your music's great. Like you should come perform here. We're bundling a bunch of indie artists to do a show." And so like I was like, okay, this seems legit. Like they're bringing like a bunch of artists so that our small fan bases can make up the whole audience. And the next thing I know, they're like, okay, you just have to pay like a $500 deposit for every guest that doesn't show. Like, so if you don't reach your quota of getting 100 fans there, you have to pay. Like, and I'm like, I have to pay you to perform for you? Like, what? I think you solve that problem right there. Like, we could I don't need that venue to make that decision. I can partner with the artists up front.
Like you said, you're finding a home for these new artists. Like when I used to DJ as well, like around London and the UK and stuff, it was exactly the same as that. I had to sell tickets. and I had to I had to bring in the people, and it was kind of unfair because you have a skill and a talent that you just want to share, and you have it, but you still are kind of looked down on, and you're like basically a worker for the venue.
Well, here's the downside of that. When you download Tapped.ai, a lot of DJs or performers may come on and they get a lot of gigs, right? So traditionally, when a booking agent comes in, they take a good percentage of all the gigs that you get. It only costs $10 a month to get onto our platform. So if you go and use the platform, you could be like one of the DJs on our app that gets 10 to 15 gigs a month. Now they're getting paid $600, $700 a gig. We don't take any fees or anything, right? So it is a good fight to fight for the independent artists, but guess what investors hate hearing? Oh, you're fighting for the independent artists that you're not going to be able to capitalize off of them, right? So the way that we're working on that is obviously to focus on the B2B aspect of the company. The B2C aspect of the community was just to build buzz, and it was a small MVP that we could build to basically show the music industry what we're capable of. But the very hard task that we're working on is building something for these venues, which still allows these independent artists to win. But it's also within our morals and the pillars that we want to stand on in terms of how we want to build our company and how we want to represent independent artists. Because there are people who have downloaded the app and they're making around $4,000, $5,000 a month from performing and reaching out to these venues, but we don't take any money from that. It just costs $10 a month. There could be 20 to 30 rock stars on there that are killing it, not rock stars in the traditional sense, but people who are going around performing, utilizing it, but we're not really benefiting from that, right? Ideally, we don't want to focus on a niche anymore. That'll still make money. If you look at companies like Chartmetric and all those other companies that focus on data in this aspect, they more so do the B2C just for the sake of doing B2C, but the bigger play is always B2B. And so I'm extremely excited for that. And then we would just invest some of that money from the B2B aspect of it into throwing more independent shows under Tapped. So similar to how like Live Nation throws their own shows, now we have these partnerships with these independent venues. And I've already thrown a couple hundred events within the past 8 years. That money funneling back into reinvesting into like the smaller communities is where I think that we will win long term, because one of these guys is going to go on to become the next Diplo, and they're going to say that they used Tapped or that they used your guys' product, right? And so 4, 5, 6 years from now, you're going to see a massive uptick. I'm not in it for the short term. I'm going to be here for a long time. And you guys have even seen it. We kind of put our foot off the gas for a little bit, right? But that's the beauty of how we set up our company, is that even if we put the foot off the gas a little bit, it can still maintain what it's doing. And when the time is right, we're going to strike.
But how was it like building Tap from the beginning, like with you and Johannes? Like, how long did it take? And what's the AI where did the AI come in? And how did you guys, utilize that future technology?
Oh my God, man, it's been crazy. If you really want me to go into it, when we first started and he called me and told me, let's work on it, I was moving to LA like 2 months later, and he was moving to Barcelona like a month later. So we were building this startup across the world for, I would say, almost about 6, 7 months. And I was working a corporate job in California. Then I switched to like a movie production job or movie studio job, running like their social media and stuff, then working at a record label, like an indie label at the same time. I was like missing meetings for those companies, running to investor meetings for Tapped. They were calling me. They're like, where are you at? I was like, oh, I'm just like going to get some food real quick. And I drive back in. I was like, dude, I cannot do this anymore. So I told him, I said, come to LA. Let's try and do this in person. I think it would work out better. And he's like, I'm not moving to LA. And I was like, I sure as hell am not moving to Barcelona. So he said, let's come up with a middle ground. We'll both move back in with our families. And I come from an immigrant family, so they're happy that I'm back, right? And he also went to go move back in with his mom for a bit. We bootstrapped, decided not to fundraise a massive round because Johannes is very firm with this. He doesn't want to take any unnecessary money for anything. Money should only be used to, I don't know if exasperate is the right word, but basically have like explosive growth. So in terms of building the B2B product, right? We don't need money to build the B2B product. We can do that ourselves. But when we want to scale, that's when you start to get money involved. And so
when you know how you're going to spend it, basically.
Exactly. And I was like, dude, let's just take $1 million check from somebody and give up like 20% of the company when we first started. Thank God we never did that. Please, if you're watching this,
big mistake.
Do not do that. And I'm so glad that we didn't do it. And I'm so glad that he's my co-founder, because we would have made those decisions, and that would have screwed us in the long term. And then maybe we wouldn't be working on the idea anymore. But now we have that flexibility, right? And so we went through that. And then a couple months later, him and I moved to Austin, Texas. We moved like a day before we got into the program. We got rejected the first time. And then one of the people from the program reached out to us because we started posting on social media. And I hated doing that. He hates doing that. Oh my God, I hate those corny LinkedIn posts. But sometimes you got to put yourself out there on the internet just because you never know who's looking. And one of the people from Antler reached out to us. A day later, him and I moved to Austin, Texas for like 2-3 months. We're paying one of the people there sleeping on their couches instead of paying for like an Airbnb or a hotel, because we wanted to keep that extra money for the startup. Shout out to Amir, shout out to Ali. They were like in their late 30s, super cool, chill, laid back guys. And I really miss them. And I'm actually going to catch up with them after this call. But they let us crash at their place. And they were actually at the South by Southwest building in Austin, Texas, where it's like a room full of hundreds of entrepreneurs that are being guided by like VCs and all these different things. I'm not gonna lie, I came from the music industry. I always said this, like, I'll never get shocked if I meet somebody from the entertainment industry because I've been jaded to it. I've been around it for so long. But when I meet like an engineer who worked at Instagram and he created the first ever Instagram ad, I'm a fanboy. You know what I mean? A big rapper could come in right now and I wouldn't even get phased. But if I meet like Mark Zuckerberg's like co-founder, somebody who like, those little things are crazy to me because that's outside of my world, right? I'm not in tech. And you guys might not even care. Like, dude, everybody worked at Facebook. Everybody went to Harvard and worked at whatever. But at least for me, it was a trip, man. And so we went through that program. And then a couple months later, we ended up doing a little bit of investment. And then we pulled an April Fool's prank, fooled the music industry. And then that got us to meet with every single major label. That got us to partner with New York Tech Week, through the biggest music tech event, moved to New York City. The CEO of Chartmetric said he wanted to meet with us. Johannes ended up moving here. And then the past 6 months, we've just been growing the community here, throwing events. AI helps in terms of the communication, and then also in terms of finding like the venues, right? So it basically goes through the whole database. It tracks your whole social media history, profile, booking history, your streams. It looks at the demographic of the streams, and then it pinpoints it with a certain amount of venues based on your profile. So for example, if I'm a musician that makes country music, maybe this city isn't good for me. Then AI will dictate you to go to, let's say, Albany in New York, or let's say it'll tell you a place in New Jersey for you to go that would be more beneficial for you in your music career. That doesn't mean you have to move there, but you could make a 30-minute drive to that city and there's a thriving country scene there. Obviously, the AI involvement is more so focused on the communication, the matchmaking. In this next year, what we do with that AI is going to be next level, which is why we would have to really ramp things up in order to make that work.
So you mentioned you were taking data from like their social media, Spotify. Are there any like what artist has it worked the best for? Like who's made the most money off this, using it to plan a tour? And like, are there artists that it doesn't work for? Like if they don't have social media or they're just getting started?
The artists that don't usually have a lot of their profile complete, it doesn't work as well because the matchmaking isn't working, right? If you're not giving, it's like ChatGPT. Yeah. With ChatGPT, if you're not prompting it, if you're not giving it the right information, it's pretty much useless to you, right? It's very general. A great AI channel is if it's properly prompted, right? Like for me, with all my companies, I have different channels, I have different projects, and I prompt it with as much information as I can give it. So when I ask it a question, it's a very educated response in terms of that specific niche. You have to mold it, right? So I would say the best example from my experience, obviously we've had bigger artists use it, like mid-sized artists that have 100K to 200K, but those guys are bound to get bookings anyways. My version of most successful is, for example, like Neural Desai, and he's somebody that I've gotten really close with now as well. And what he did was he used the platform to basically go and perform at this venue in Washington, D.C., and we went out to that show. And so he said he wanted to specifically start focusing on Bollywood pop music, right? So I use him as a perfect case of it because he wanted me to be his booking agent. And I told him, I can't be your booking agent, but I'm building a platform that is an extension of me. Use this. I promise it would work. And sometimes for artists, it's hard for that to wrap their head around it because they like that human aspect of it, right? But he went on the platform. He wanted to get involved with more of like a Indian-centric type of event. And so he went and performed in front of 400 people now, which was his biggest show. He also got another booking from that. And then he got reached out to by a Bollywood director to now do a soundtrack in 2025. So that's the idea of finding your right home, right? Or then, and for the sake of his privacy, I'm going to keep his name anonymous, but he's 17 years old and he's also a minor. So I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about it publicly or whatever. But if you look on the app, you look at one of the top artists, he's on there. He was also somebody who was making music and going viral on TikTok and Discord. And like the new age, the new generation, right? A lot of them make music, not in the studio, but by using software like you guys, going on Discord with their friends, punching in, sending the music, posting it on TikTok. That's the new way to make music for these younger guys. And so we want to fit right in there where Tapped is also how you get booked. The same way that you don't go into the studio, obviously it still happens, but the same way that these younger guys, they don't go into the studio, they go on Discord and they punch in. I don't want them to go and find a booking agent. I want them to use Tapped. And so what he did was he had no connections, never done a show before. He reached out to Night Horse and he saw that there was a booking from another artist on the app that put a bill through there, reached out to that artist, said, I want to get on it. He got on it, got his first booking, and he was able to drop a collab song right after that as well. And then he got 2 more bookings after, and that built his confidence, because the hardest part is to get the first booking because people don't trust it, right? They're like, there's no way it's this easy. I can get on and I can book a gig and they're not taking 20% of my earnings. This doesn't sound like a business. Well, the reason why is because the B2B is our bigger play. The B2C is one product that we're focusing on just to build the buzz. I promise it's as good as it sounds. If you don't believe me, use it for yourself. It's Tapped.ai. And it's $10 a month. And the reason why we did that is because we know people won't pay $70 to $100. Even though a booking agent costs thousands of dollars a month, or they take 20 to 30% of your career, or even if you do it yourself and try and do outreach, it takes hundreds of hours a month. People are still not going to pay more than $50 for a software with this type of technology. And so we kind of met the ceiling with it and we decided that this was the best way to go. And regardless, we know where we're headed to. So this can still thrive, but come next year when we do this podcast again, hopefully, it'll be a much different story. So I would say those are the most successful cases, and those are the stories that I want to focus on. Is we don't need big artists. Big artists can already get bookings. They're already big enough. I want to focus on those small artists that have a massive change in their life because of this product, because then they will use it for the entirety of their career. Diplo could use this, but Diplo's already getting bookings. He's going to get this app and he's going to delete it tomorrow. But Lil Rohan in New York City, when he gets on this app and he gets a booking, or let's say like young Jeff or whatever artist, right? Anybody who's just like in the new age, I think this is going to be something that's going to be a lifetime product for them, especially when we add that B2B component.
That sounds like a no-brainer. Like $10 to not have a booking agent and just like manage your own tour is insane to me. And I wish I had that in college because I might have performed more.
You still have to put the work in being an artist, right? Because a lot of like these cats will see, it's like when people see some of my music production tip videos, they think it's going to be easy, but they don't understand that there's still work to do behind it, whether that's raising your profile, making beats like every single day and doing the networking stuff. So they still have to put the work behind it. But I feel like Tapped has just made it easy for that sector where they can get bookings, but they're still going to need to put, you guys get Tapped, but still put the work in and raise your profile and get out there and do the networking, but Tapped is an awesome tool to help.
I mean, there are artists that I've told not to use the platform because they might be too big, or even because they might be too small, right? Like, it's not just the platform that's going to get you gigs, and we're not turning you into the next Taylor Swift. I hate to break it to people, because when we say create your world tour, it sounds very grandiose, but that's what gets people interested, right? In reality, creating a world tour should be redefined, right? You can go and perform at 100 capacity venues and do it in Indonesia and do it in Kentucky and do it in all these different places if you have a solid enough fan base. If you don't have that much of a fan base, like let's say no social profile, no streams at all, then it's going to be hard. But if you hustle on the app and you network, then of course you'll be able to make it happen. But to your point, if you don't put in the work, if you're not building a lifestyle or a community around yourself, then it's going to be very hard for you to also have that same success.
I have a question that I ask a lot of people who are like in the touring industry. And it's like our company missions are similar. We're trying to help artists like build their career, create new revenue streams. And like one of the things that's like I've been kind of chewing on to figure out, is there a way we can do, is there a way we can get artists a cut of drink revenue at venues that they perform at? because they come, they perform, there might be $1,000 for the performance or something. Well, the venue's just raking in like 10 to 30K from people buying booze. Is there some way strategically artists can take back that power and be like, okay, now we're selling the drinks?
We're working on that, and I can't say too much about it, but like I said, hopefully in the next couple of months when we get into that, that's exactly what we'll be working on. And the reason why that's an issue is because a lot of the times the venues are not transparent with how much they make from those sales, right? And we have found a way to be able to calculate that, and that's all I can say. And I've dealt with it myself. Look, Halloween, we threw an event. We had 1,200 people come in, and the night of, I got a call from the building, and they said, if you throw this event here, it's over capacity, and you are going to get locked up. So move this event now. And on Halloween, the night before, we had to find a new venue. Now, keep this in mind. I know this sounds like an ad, or it sounds like I'm trying to sell my own product. I swear I'm not. Like, I barely even use Tapped when I'm hosting my own events, just because of the sole fact that I'm not a performer, right? And so one of my friends who is a performer, I was calling all these venues and hitting people up, because when we use Tapped, when it sends out a prompt, it doesn't send it as an event organizer. It sends it out as an actual musician, right? And so my friend, who's a user of Tapped, was looking at me panicking, trying to call up all these venues. He gets on Tapped. He looks at the place that we were throwing the event at. He goes down the street. He finds Hotel Chantel on the app, has their contact information, gets on a call, and in 5 minutes, he found a new venue for us, right? Now, here's the issue. We didn't take any money from the tab, and just know we missed out on a lot of money. But that's what we were willing to give up, because they obviously gave us a venue. But even I myself, as an event organizer, I've seen how much money I've made other people by not taking a cut of that. I would only take money from ticket sales, and even then, I only sell like 20 tickets at a time, but the first couple hundred are always free. So I myself, even as an event organizer, I see that problem for artists. And yes, I do believe that there is a way to also make sure that performers and artists are getting paid from that as well. But the hardest part is getting venues to be convinced to give up that data. Well, we have a workaround for that. And that, like I said, will be the game-changing thing when we make it work. And so what I wanted to do, if it's cool with you guys real quick, I'm going to share my screen and just show people what it looks like when they use the product. We really want to encourage people to fill out their history. You know, when you have a new account and you come on here, it shows you the amount of venues that have responded or the amount of venues that you have contacted. It also tells you how many shows that you've done this month. It shows how much money you've made. Keep in mind, this is just for you. And eventually for tax purposes, you'll have a way to be able to because once you start making money as a performer, it's so many different other income sources that you're also making as a musician. Sometimes it's hard to keep up. It also shows your best performances. So let's say, for example, you need to show somebody. And the biggest thing here is we need you to fill out this information, because if you don't, we can't help you do your job. Obviously, you have the booking history, your social media links, your profile picture. That way people don't think you're a bot. We have this map, and let's say I'm in New York City, for example, right? And so now I'm able to look through all these different venues, and I didn't want it to...
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot more, but we had to minimize the amount of venues because it just crashes. I'm being transparent. We're a small startup. If you really saw how many venues were here, you would lose your mind. But we had brought in around 70 interns this past summer because our April Fool's prank, and how many people were excited to work, and all these venues that are verified from all this different information. Now, keep in mind, I don't have a premium account, so it's not going to show all the information, but it looks at all their past shows and it updates the type of genres.
Nice.
So if I'm not an indie artist or a pop or Americana or rock, I should probably not be performing here. They have a 5-star review, so other performers really like this area, and it has 300 capacity. So obviously I'm not a musician. I wouldn't perform at something that big. Now, let's say, for example, I wanted to perform here. I would click request to perform, and then that's when I would be prompted with the $10 a month, right? They also have their email, their booking history, all the shows that they've done in the past. So I can see on August 30th, the data on this isn't completely filled out, but it basically shows all the different performers, the date that they performed. And so I can reach out to the performers. If the venue doesn't respond, I can reach out to the performers that have a connection with the venue.
Oh, nice. And so you can build your network. You can build a network within the app.
My man, people have A&Rs use this platform to just find up-and-coming talent. There are artists that use this just specifically as a networking tool, not even to perform. Now, that's not what we want people to use it for. I'm going to be real with you. But there's a lot of different things that you can do on this platform. And so alongside that, I'm able to look through all these different gigs, all these different performers. Like, look, the flyers, everything is here, right? Now I have their Instagram. Now I have their email. Look at how much this sucks from like an actual platform stance, right? Why would we give their Instagram? Why would we give their email? Why would we give their phone number? All this you can access for premium for $10 a month for all the venues, right? This is taking people off of our platform. Well, that's because, you know, people always talk about the fact that like, hey, you should build a platform for the artists. You should build a platform for the people. Well, then when you actually do it, you're not getting millions of signups, right? But when you build those platforms that are actually exploiting those artists or taking advantage of it and doing it in a way like the bigger ones, right? That are doing it in a way where it keeps you on the platform, those are the ones that are successful.
What? Because you just mentioned a stunt. What was this April Fool's prank? Any entrepreneurs out there, listen to this.
A lot of people ask me this, and somebody recently came to me like a week ago and they're like, how can I create my own April Fool's prank? I said, I'm going to be real with you. I don't know if it works for everybody, so don't listen to me. And I think this only worked within my niche. And so what I did was I was like, you know, the past couple of years while we were building the 6 different versions of Tapped, from creating the world's first AI record label to creating a booking marketplace to creating a badge verification platform, Tapped has went through 6 to 7 different iterations. I was sick and tired of meeting all these investors and getting all these coffees and trying to keep them warm for one day that we would find our product market fit. We finally found our product market fit with the live music data analytics. I realized that when I did an in-app notification on the app, I treated the in-app notifications as if they weren't professional. I'd be like, yo, your girl's calling you a simp for not applying to a festival or something. Go apply to this festival. It's so stupid. When I went into the dashboard, right? Every single day before that, I was having professional notifications because all my friends were calling me and they're like, Ilias, you got to stop with these goofy notifications. Like, you guys are building a real tech company. This is a bad look. And I listened to them and I did it for a couple of months. And then one day I said, screw it, man. I said, I know what'll work. I want everybody to look at their phone and I want them to be confused. I pulled that prank. People started posting on their Instagram stories. I was getting calls. Everybody was hitting me up. And then unfortunately, I got hit up by somebody who was very powerful in the music industry. And he was upset at my co-founder. He said, how dare he call my wife a simp? And when we looked at the dashboard, right, so keep in mind, like music execs, high level, like record label people, like big artists, they're looking at their phone. They're like, what's going on? I look at the dashboard, the in-app notification had like 20,000% multiplied the amount of opens that we've ever had from like an in-app notification. And so that's when it hit me. I said, okay, so I can be a little bit more playful with this, right? And so then when we were about to launch, I noticed that we were launching around April Fool's time. With the whole situation with the guy in the music industry, I heard about it. I told my co-founder, I said, do not handle that for me. You don't have to apologize on my behalf. I said, give me his number. I will apologize to him and give his wife my number as well. And I will personally apologize to her. And he was dumbfounded. He said, wow. Because he thought it was like a very bad word. But I told him in our generation, it's like a playful way to just make fun of somebody, right? It's not something serious. But for the older generation, it's very, very serious to them. And so I apologized to him and his wife. And he loved it, dude. After that, he was like hooking us up with all these gigs. I was like, damn, so me doing this is what got us closer. That's crazy. But obviously it wasn't that. It was the way that I handled the situation and everything.
Yeah.
April 1st, I had came up with the April Fool's prank and I called Johannes and I said, you know what? All these investors, all these people who are saying that they want to invest in us or whatever, and they believe in him and I, they don't care about the product. They just care about the team. I was like, okay, well then let's give them some FOMO. You know, so the day that we launch the company, we're not going to run a press run. We're not going to say that we launched the company. The day that we go live, we're going to say that we sold the company for 28 million. And we're going to say that we shut down the company in the same day. That is so stupid. That is so stupid that you would expect people to just look at that and laugh. And I'm just thinking about this whole situation where I had to apologize to a bunch of people 2 weeks beforehand. And I was like, do I have to apologize to people if I do this? Johannes calls me. He says, bro, just do it. And I did it. We created an article. I called up an old publicist friend that I knew. We launched the article, and in 24 hours, like 300 plus people reached out to us. A bunch of VCs responded and emailed to us and saying that, hey, we sent this to everybody in the office. A lot of investors said, hey, let's grab a bite to eat. Let's meet up in New York City. And this is at the time where we were bootstrapping and I was living with my family, right? So I'm running. Warner calls us up. One of my friends had seen the article. He sent it to his friend to send it to somebody at Warner. Warner called us and I'm like, man, I've been in the music industry for 7 to 8 years and I've never been in that building. I pack my bags. I go to meet with Warner and they're like, we want to invest in you guys. And it wasn't as much as we wanted. So you'll learn this about me and Johannes. Oh my God, we will go back and forth in terms of negotiations. Like we're not the type, he's not the type. And I've learned that from him. And we still have a great relationship with them and we want to make something work in the future. And so we kind of have that in our back pocket, but we ended up not coming to terms on anything. And so it was still cool to be able to have access to them and then to be able to be there. And so a stupid
What
April.
was their reaction when you like?
Oh, they loved it.
It didn't actually get acquired.
Yeah. Oh, dude, they loved it, bro. Like everybody loved it because think about it like this. All these investors are getting thousands of emails about, hey, my startup is the greatest startup ever. And our idea was like, I want these investors to feel that FOMO and I want them to get their stomach to drop because people always would tell us, you guys are going to blow up and I'm going to regret it. You guys are going to blow up and I'm going to regret it. You guys are going to blow up. And I was like, okay, well then what happens if it actually happens? So now when they saw the article, their stomach dropped. They clicked on the article. Then they went and learned everything about Tap. And keep in mind, I want to make this very clear. In the article, it clearly says that it's an April Fool's prank, but people only read the headline, right? And so a lot of people actually believed it. Like there's people in my hometown. One of my friends visited me the other day. He's like, bro, everybody back in our hometown thinks you sold the company for X amount of money. I was like, what, are you serious? But a lot of people in New York and in the scene now know that it's an April Fool's prank.
But it got heads to turn, right? And it got everyone to delve into Tapped and what it was. That's a genius move, bro. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. And it got us to move out to New York. We didn't plan on moving to New York until January 1st. And then that trickled down into us throwing a small event. And then that small event had like 120 signups because everybody was curious about this April Fool's prank. And then that trickled into us working with New York Tech Week. We threw the biggest music tech event. And then from there, all this buzz was coming along. We were meeting all these record labels, getting really good connections. And now we have like a really, really strong network out here in New York City. And I'm just so thankful because I wasn't supposed to move to New York City until yesterday. And I moved here like 7 months ago because of that stupid prank.
What happens when you get like an AI musician that just signs up to Tapped, and how do you see that looking?
Like an actual like fictitious musician or somebody who's like a hybrid? Like let's say I use a fake voice to make music and I'm known for my fake voice. What do you mean by that?
Like a Michaela.
Virtual.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And where is that going? Like, and where, because there's a bunch of them popping up. Or do you have plans for that? Where is that going?
Great question, man. You just sparked something completely new into my head. Yeah, dude. I don't even know. Like, they put their conscious into like a Tesla like robot and now they're performing. I don't know, man. Good question. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't have an answer for that. But what I do think overall in terms of AI and its involvement with music, I'm gonna be real with you. I was so against it in the beginning. I was like, there is no way AI can only replace business, and I think the art should be left alone. I've been meeting with a lot of different companies like Suno and Udio and hearing their philosophy, and even with you guys, it's very refreshing to see the approach that all three of you guys are taking. It's almost like, and this is how I see it now, is that AI is going to be like autotune. Autotune has been here for a very long time. It's been altering people's voices, and you've technically been able to alter people's voices for a very long time. It just hasn't been this easy. I think the relationship that AI is going to have with music is that it's going to be almost like autotune, but now we opened up like Pandora's box. It's like auto-tune times a million. You can change your voice to whatever you want. However, I still do think that people will resonate with people's stories, right? There's a little bit of a difference. And I spoke about this at NYU. I said, I think we have officially entered the era of fast food music. And anything that is made by human beings, I consider gourmet, like a steak dinner, right? There's that raw emotion and there's story. And I had to change my viewpoint. I had to be around a lot of engineers and a lot of musicians, and I'm in those two worlds. I'm around the musicians that say, I don't want to do anything with AI, but then I'm also around the engineers that are like trying to like find the new next cutting edge approach to this whole thing. And so I think the solution is a balance. And I think we can't completely discredit the AI aspect of music where it's just complete humanoids and fake images. And people do like the idea of like, if you guys are familiar with like VTubers on Twitch, right? It's a fictitious persona, and it's just like half the time it's like guys pretending to be girls, and they got like this anime thing, like an anime character, a fake anime voice, and they got hundreds of thousands of views. And so I think we've entered this era of fast food music. There is going to be a lane for that where AI music is happening, but then I also think AI will be involved in the gourmet aspect of music where people want to make high quality music that talks about their own emotions. Like for me, I'm going to be real with you. I don't think I could ever connect as a human being to an AI influencer's story like how I can with Rohan. Like Rohan might drop a song about a really hard time in his life, and then maybe I followed him along his journey and something bad happened to him, and I saw that growth, right? We fall in love with imperfection when it comes to music because it's relatable to us on a grander scale. And I think that's going to be really hard for AI to be able to do, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. However, I don't think the answer is black or white. I think that there's just a new market, and that's it. And it's going to raise the value of the organic version of music as well.
I kind of disagree with one point you made, which is that like I think a lot of people do connect with like the story of the artist behind it, but on another level, I think a lot of like passive listeners, like people who just like put on Spotify while they're doing the dishes, they don't really like care or listen to the meaning behind the song. They're just listening for the vibe. So it's like, how does it sound on a surface level? Does it sound good to me? And for those people, I feel like artists are kind of screwed. Like there's AI generators will like definitely compete with that. If they're
I want to add to that. You're right. I'm wrong. There's a caveat to that. Like, let's say, for example, Tupac and Biggie have never made a song together, right? But I would love to hear that. And I might listen to it 4 or 5 times. But let's say, for example, Kanye West made a song 10 years ago, and that was a big part of my childhood. And that goes to my point of gourmet music and fast food music. Fast food is still great. I still love fast food. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes. And I think what you guys are working on is really cool to see, because you guys are building at the forefront of that. Hey, you guys are one of the big ones that aren't dealing with that lawsuit that all the other ones are dealing with. So you guys have that open, clear road to just keep building and keep going crazy.
We're just kind of like building stuff for the future, for new creators, for new musicians, whether it be AI musicians or, you know, or the real gourmet musicians. We're all here for the love of it, I think. And I definitely feel that from you, Ilias. Like, you've got this love for helping and kind of making a mark in a real authentic way, where you're not trying to eat off anyone. You know, you're just trying to kind of, I feel like you've had experiences, or maybe you've had like so many like musicians around you that you've seen have gone through experiences that you kind of want to smoothen out.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I've been screwed over so many times by the bigger suits, and I've had so many artists that are best friends. I've been in the studios with them. I've seen it hand in hand again, how many times these guys have gotten screwed over. So it's like a personal mission for me. I appreciate that you see that as well.
The fact that you were able to do this without like, you know, 125 million funding or something is insane. The fact that we can build these things from the ground up is thanks to like all the tech and research that's like been laid out for us to use as building blocks. And yeah, I think it's just interesting to see how everyone has a new perspective of how these same new technologies can be applied to the industry.
I was just saying, I completely agree with you guys. It's refreshing to meet like other founders like you guys. And this is not to blow smoke up your guys' asses, but how many times have you guys met people who are building in the music space that aren't musicians or creatives themselves, right? They're looking at a term sheet, or they're looking at contracts, or they're looking at statistics and saying, hey, this is a good market to take over. Whereas you guys are seeing it from your own personal experience. Like Rohan, when you were making music, or Jeff, for you, for example, both you guys have been in those shoes, and that's a completely different perspective. That's something money can never buy. And I'm very pro creative people leading like this specific scene.
What would you say to like the new kind of next generation of people that want to build something? The advice that you would have given yourself 7 or 8 years ago before you started?
A lot of people think that they need to do things alone, and I didn't. I mean, but the first 2 years I was solely just doing it by myself. And then I would even say that the past 4 or 5 years, I've really been focusing on having people around me, because there's only so much that you can do. But I really want to make sure that before we end this pod, I give people some like tangibles and actual platforms that they can use. And so obviously, aside from my platform and your guys' platform, which if they're watching, I hope they signed up for, I recommend for creators and entrepreneurs, CapCut is a really good video editing platform. There's a lot of AI features that make it super easy for you to be able to edit and make content. We've heard the saying, content is king, but I also believe distribution is king. And I think not only should you make the content, because everybody makes content now, I believe people should also hire editors, and you can do that off Fiverr. So we have CapCut to make content. We have Fiverr to reach out to people to distribute that content and post it on your behalf. Canva is a really good platform when you're creating like materials. And then lastly, I would tell people to also get their back end figured out. If you're a musician and you want to make this serious, yeah, it's cool that you're posting TikToks, but also set up an LLC for yourself. You don't need to sign to a record label. You could borrow money yourself. You're basically taking out a glorified bank loan anyways. Have it under your own name and get it handled. And then lastly, make sure that, and you can build your businesses through Stripe, Atlas, LegalZoom. These are all super easy to use. And then I would say Cursor for people that are entrepreneurs. There's no excuse if you want to build something now. It's extremely easy for you to be able to build a website. Just yesterday, I met an entrepreneur who built a better website than us in like a week. It wasn't for our specific niche, but I've been preaching about Cursor for the longest time.
ManyChat is key for doing content creation. That's like the latest trend is like, oh, leave a comment and I'll send you this link and you can build automation so that you follow up with them in the DMs. I think of content creation more as relationship building than content creation, because really what it is you're sharing knowledge with people. Whether or not you see them, they see you and they know you now. So it's more about like them knowing you and your knowledge and what you have to share, than just being like, oh, I have 10 million views on social media.
Like through this whole conversation, I feel like Ilias and even me and Rohan, like, we're very honest with ourselves and what we want, and we kind of see things in that way, right? So we're not trying to like be like anyone else, be like any other company. We have like a goal and a North Star within us, and we kind of stay true to that. And so if you stick to that North Star, you're just going to get there anyway, and that makes you make the right decisions. Like you, Ilias, not taking the investment from Warner, those type of decisions, making that April Fool's prank. You're just being true to yourself. So that can come across through social media. There's a trend now, like where people are making videos which they're just filming on their phones. It's not high edited anymore. It's not high production value. Everyone just loves to see a day in the life of an entrepreneur, or like their journey, their ups and downs. So I think being true to yourself is like probably like the final. It sounds so cliche, but
that's true.
It's like
there's truths in cliches. That's why they're called cliches, right?
What's like through this whole journey, what has been the most standout like experience or opportunity that's come from it? I just want to like get some kind of inspirational stuff for our audience. Someone in our audience is probably watching and they might have an idea, but they're just procrastinating.
I would love to say this because I think most people look at like the April Fool's prank, or when we're like at the label offices or at YouTube Music, like all these crazy moments that they see. But I think the biggest thing for me when I was leaving my media company was massive, right? We were getting millions of views a month and we had all these big partnerships, and I had to make a decision to focus on the software company. And at the time when I did, I was scared because I was like, I have to start something from scratch again. And that's going to take a very long time. And I don't know if people will resonate with it like how they will with TCC. And so that was a very scary jump for me. And so a couple years down the line, flash forward, I had this real cool moment with somebody named Arya, who is a user of Tapped. And Joey Badass was hosting a summit for men of color who are in like the music industry, and just being able to like find like mentorship, right? And so I was there at the program, and I had went to meet up with somebody who was one of the mentees. And so I spoke to him and I told him what I was working on. I was like, I really resonate with your story. I want to help you out. I was like, let's get you some bookings or whatever. And I didn't mention anything about TCC. People had always came up to me and they knew about TCC on campus, whatever. People always talked to me about that, but I never had anybody come up to me like this. And he looked at me, he said, wait, Tapped? I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, I know about Tapped. I have it downloaded right here. I said, no way, man. And that brought me back to that moment when I first made that jump, because I had not even known him. We don't even really go crazy with marketing other than word of mouth. And I met somebody who randomly found out about it, and he went to UMD at the time. And one of my good friends, Owen, had went to UMD to do a speech about the music industry, and he had told them to use Tapped, right? And so then flash forward a couple months later, he's been using Tapped, and I meet him at that summit, and that was a surreal moment to me. I think it's like those little moments that mean a lot to you, because sometimes it reminds you about the times when you first doubted it, you know? And so that will always stick in my head no matter what.
You don't really realize sometimes how much it's reaching. All we see is the day-to-days, and we're just like working, fast, go. And then it's when a random, someone who's quite established comes up to you and like, I'm using it. Thank you for being on our show. Seeing your journey is awesome. And I'm glad we're like in this circle together and not on this journey together in different sectors, but the same sector. So yeah, it's really cool to catch up with you.
Of course, one last thing before the show ends, and for the people who are watching as well, we're throwing an AI music panel at the end of the month, and my goal is to get Suno. We have one representative from Suno, one representative from Udio, and then one representative from each major label, because none of them have publicly spoke about the whole legal battle with AI music. And I would love to save a seat on the panel for one of you guys to come out as well. And if anybody's watching this, they could come in New York and talk about the future of AI in music with Suno, Udio, and the three major labels. So it'd be the big three of AI music and the big three of the major labels.
What are the odds that like shit goes down there?
Well, because they were all making jokes and everything, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
We're going to leave a link in the description below, and you guys need to get tapped in. This is the future of your bookings, your gigs, growing your audience, and You just heard the whole podcast. Ilias and his team, Johannes, is all trying to help. And me and Rohan, controller voice. What we're trying to do is help you guys, creators, new music creators. That's in our hearts, and that's what we're here to do. So once again, Tapped.ai is in the description below. And also, if you're not using controller voice, which I hope you are, we hope you are, that's in the description below as well. Thank you for watching. This is the What's Real Music podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. Oh, and if you like this video, then you might like this video where I turn my voice into a saxophone. Peace.